Return of the Mount Hua Sect, Chapter 209. Grandfather's rod is quite painful to accept. This crazy old man! How could you do this? Tonganak tucked his hands into his sleeves. His hands shook as he held onto the daggers within his sleeves. He was quickly losing control, but Tongwei was looking at him and smiling. I'm merely dueling fairly. And you think that means you can use poison? That too, one without an antidote. Tonganak bit his lip. He was too late. Even if he jumped onto the stage now, he wouldn't be able to save Chongmyung. Moreover, he would also get affected by the poison as well. Tonganak, who was turning red with rage, pointed at Tongwei and spoke in a terribly angry voice. Can you call yourself an elder of the Tang family after doing such a thing? Going against a child of a sect who pursued the truth of the sword, and to use poison that our family doesn't even have an antidote for. What is the difference between you and the sects in the forces of evil? He didn't call the man an elder anymore. Those who did such things didn't have the right to be addressed with such flashy titles. How could he respect a person who abandoned the rules of the family which should be upheld whatever the cost? However, despite his words, Tongwei laughed. The forces of evil, was it? Yes. Lord, wake up. This is why the Tang family couldn't control the world. He drew Poison Key into both of his hands. What is the Tang family's current situation? Even with our powerful poison and daggers, we are being criticized by the world constantly and is stuck in the corner of Sichuan, claiming to be kings of this bloody region. How long do we have to be bound by this outdated rule? Tongwei's eyes twinkled in a crazy manner. Mei, Qingcheng, that isn't even the matter. If we decided to turn them into our enemies, it wouldn't even take a day for Mount Mei and Mount Qingcheng to turn into a bloodbath. But what about us? We are surrounded by this place, and we do nothing. Is this the future that the Tang family wants? So, you will start throwing poison at anyone. If you do that, it will only turn us into tyrants who want the world under them. But we will have the world. Am I wrong? Blood rushed up Tonganak's face. His anger began to rise so much that he was losing his control. Tonganak grunted through his teeth. What are you doing? Catch that sinner right now and put him in the cell. Sinner? Who is the sinner? Tongwei pointed to Tonganak and began to yell. The sinner has to be the Lord who has weakened the Tang family so much. How ignorant do you have to be to go and join hands with Mount Hua of all? Tonganak's nails dug into his palm. He couldn't control his trembling fist. No matter how horrendous Tongwei was right now, he was an elder of the family. As such, he couldn't attack him in front of everyone. And Tonganak clenched his hand and turned around. He didn't want to show it openly, but he knew that there were people sympathizing with the words of Tongwei, and Tonganak began to regret it. It is all my fault. It was a mistake on his part to openly indulge in this conversation with Tongwei, not realizing that the man had such ambitions hiding inside him. Above all, he should have never let Mount Hua's divine dragon fight him. He should have stopped it. He should have interfered right away. In fact, he shouldn't even have let it start in the first place. A moment's hesitation and his unreasonable belief in someone led to this terrible result. A child had died. When Tonganak was about to pull out a dagger from his sleeve. There! A cold wind was blowing from somewhere, and the poison was moving away from the stage. Those who saw that moved further back. Tongwei used a martial art and pushed the poison up to the sky. If someone else got affected by this poison, then the tables would turn on him. And looking at the poison which had been lifted, his face broke into a smile. He was going to send his condolences to Chongmyung, who was now just a flesh. What? Tang Wei doubted his eyes. What he saw wasn't a corpse that was rotting. It was just Chungmyung, alive and healthy. How? Although his clothes were stained by poison, the parts of his body that was exposed didn't seem to be suffering from any ailment, and the man was checking his body condition as he pushed his body up from the floor. Ugh! Chungmyung kept grunting. It was funny to see it, but Tang Wei couldn't laugh. Chungmyung puked a bit and then wiped his lips as he got up. It was difficult for Tang Wei to understand it. The poison. Did I eat too much? Chungmyung shook his head. The food of Sichuan is hurting my body. Tang Wei looked at Chungmyung as he couldn't trust his eyes. Tang Wei looked at Chungmyung as if he couldn't trust his eyes. Cooking, not because of the poison. How? How was he not affected? Tang Wei couldn't understand it. Hadn't everyone here seen him get hit? He was engulfed in the Ghost King's order and then was hit by the chasing soul in 7 steps. No man can handle so much poison. Of course, if it had been a master at his peak, they would be able to endure it to some extent, or maybe suppress it. But how could this child be at that level? Spit. Chungmyung spat a couple of times to clear his throat. I have a few things to correct you on. First, the reason the Tang family cannot make a name in the world isn't because it doesn't use its poison. It is because the poison doesn't work. What did you say? Chungmyung smiled. Seeing Tang Wei's reaction made him want to laugh. Reminds me of the past. But why don't you use the poisons of the Tang family? Oh, Hyung, have you ever heard of someone from the Tang family being the best in the world? Nope. See? In the past, weren't we a family that was on par with the Namgung family? It was said that the people that the Namgung family and the Peng family produced were higher than those who come from the Tang family. Because of the poison. Yes, of course, at the right level, it is the shortcut to many answers we seek. But just throwing a drop of water in the tea or rubbing something in the needle before poking someone, is there any need to fear that? But if we win so easily, will we ever be able to hone our skills? We aren't invincible after all. If we only use the poison of the Tang family, if we do that, our personal skills will never improve. Then, when we meet a Hyung like you in our lives, everything will fall apart for us. Those people back home won't understand it despite us constantly telling them. Poison is poisonous to normal people, but it won't work on those who are strong, truly strong. Conquer the world with poison. If that was possible, there's no way that the Tang family would have fallen to the heavenly demon. Not just the heavenly demon. In the end, the Tang family fled because it simply didn't have enough people who could handle the people from the demonic sect. If warriors could be defeated using poison, then why did the demonic sect make them run in fear? A poison with no cure. Just because there was no cure, that didn't mean that the poison couldn't be removed. There would always be a way to deal with it. This was one of the 2 things that Chungmyung was sure of. How are you not poisoned? Even if you held your breath, it should have entered through the skin. All the poison should have worked. Tang Wei was losing it. If internal qi was channeled to block the pores in one's body, and if he surrounded his body with qi, then nothing could enter. As long as he didn't inhale the poison and didn't let it touch his skin, he wouldn't be poisoned. However, using this method when it came to needles was tough. As soon as one single needle touched the skin, the poison would flow deep into the body. The method that was used by most experts would be to purify the poison that had entered the body with internal qi. Masters who reached the peak would remove the qi in the body to dispel it. There was no need for any external antidote or cure. An antidote was just a drug that was made to neutralize the poison in the body for those who had ingested it. But what good was an antidote for people who could survive despite being poisoned? This was why the Tang family could never become such an influential place in the world, despite using such fatal poison. Tangbo knew this from the start. Tangbo was already treated as an outsider because of his decision, and he had gone through numerous situations and experiences to realize this. Thanks to that, he realized that a true warrior wouldn't lean on poison to make a name for himself. As such, he put everything he had into daggers. That was the birth of the 12th dagger, the inception of the soul-chasing dagger. Well, you won't understand it even if I explain. Let's just say that it is because I have a unique build. A self-curing body. That's too far-fetched. Chongmyung waved his hand. And the second one? Chongmyung frowned and said, the Tang family didn't form an alliance with Mount Hua. Mount Hua formed an alliance with the Tang family. This is a very important one, so remember it. The moment Tang Wei was about to speak in a puzzled way, Chongmyung spoke first. And finally, the third one. The Tang family lord saw through this kind of thing from the beginning and tried to work with Mount Hua, but you didn't see it till the very end. It must be difficult for the poor lord of the Tang family to deal with your lot. People like you are the ones who need to be spoon-fed right into your mouths. You! Chongmyung held the sword. Okay, let's continue. Feel free to use as much poison as you want. Wait, you shouldn't have been able to use internal ki. You're already... Tang Wei, who was speaking, went silent with a flinch. He almost said something he shouldn't have. Ah, that thing? Chongmyung smiled. Do you know what the most special trait of a stupid man is? He thinks he is the only smart one around. I expected something like this to happen before I even met you. What people like you do is clearly known to all. So you already took the cure for it. You keep saying stupid stuff. Your poisons don't work on me. Chongmyung smirked. Do it again if you don't believe me. I was going to, even if you didn't say it. With that, he used the Ghost King's order again. Once again, smoke rose around Chongmyung. Instead of a wide area, it was concentrated on Chongmyung alone. I told you it was useless. Chongmyung swung the sword and the smoke disappeared, and he walked to Tang Wei slowly. Tang Wei still couldn't understand it. He had clearly seen the poison enter the nose and eyes of Chongmyung. But then, he should have been affected. His body should have started melting down. But the man didn't seem affected by any means. I'm sorry, but it's not going to work. I told you, my body's unique. It sounded absurd, but it was true. Chongmyung's body possessed the purest ki in the world. Moreover, the ki of Tao was specialized in healing and purification, and no Taoist could compare to Chongmyung when it came to pure ki. It was a ki he was able to gather because he had the chance to start over. Poison was no problem for such a ki. It's a good thing that I ate the soul vitality pill. He cured the poison much better than he thought he would. He felt good as he thought about his impressive actions. Well, considering how much hard work he put into creating this pure ki, it had to be this effective. Chongmyung smiled and said, Now what will you do? Tang Wei's expression changed. His face, which was flustered, was now calm. You don't even know your own condition properly. Look at your hands before you talk. Chongmyung looked at it. Huh? What's this? His fingertips were dyed black, which was a sign of being affected by the poison. I knew you were great, but it seems like you cannot drive out the poison after all. Whoa, there's really all kinds of poisons, aren't there? Imagine how strong it had to be for this to happen. Tang Wei had a happy face. When you go to hell and meet the king of hell, tell him that you were sent there because you underestimated the poison of the Sichuan Tang family. You have a really kiddish personality. What? Chongmyung smiled. It seems like there's a limit on what goes through your head. But so what? The poison cannot be. It was then. Swish! There was the sound of something burning, and then flames rose from both the hands of Chongmyung. At the same time, a strong smoke also rose from his fingers. Chongmyung held out his hands. If I can't push it out, I'll burn it. Seeing the flame, Tang Wei mumbled as he stepped back. Somebody drew fire. How? Does that mean that this child is capable of something that only the best masters in the world can do? The moment Tang Wei was in shock and was unable to speak, Baekchun, who was watching it, sighed. He burns alcohol with fire, then burns the poison with fire. Just don't burn Mount Hua, please.